Welcome to Hippez, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, cannabis socialite.
And I am Dasheeda Dawson, the weed head.
Hi, sis.
Hey, sis.
Hey, sis. On today's episode of Hippez, the NYPD forgot the game of spades. Pennsylvania is cashing in on those cannabis coins, and we discuss weed market dynamics with a real businesswoman.
Okay, well, of course, we got to kick things off with the high of the week. And our high of the week is a collective high of the week. We're super excited to introduce Modern Hippiez. This is a Black woman-owned brand. And we're always smoking, and we always have consumption happening. There's always terpenes in the air. But sometimes you also want to figure out a way to freshen up the space. So this is that.
Yes. Well, it is black owned, but there is a black man involved in it.
True.
Yes, yes. And so when y'all go to the website, you'll see that they have many products, and we got the really cool opportunity to experience the products before we even brought it as a high of the week. And but seriously, you guys, they have like some really great handcrafted fragrances, from floral to clean to tropical citrus, and it comes in candles, incense, and 3-in-1 sprays. Okay, so we have one right now. I'm holding the tropical sunrise. This is the one you had, I believe, right?
Yes, it's my favorite.
And these fragrances smell so good that, honey, when you spray it on yourself, somebody is going to turn around and look, baby.
And it works so well with the terpenes.
Yes.
Too. That's also what I love about it.
Yes. It's like cannabis, that marijuana fragrance they talk about. Well, this is part of it. And they have many products. Their 2 ounces start at $10. You will see many different names like Blessings, Rise, Good, LA Coasting, Sensual Imagination. This is mine, baby. Creative Imagination, and much, much more. So check out their website. Really good prices. These incense sticks start at $5, and it's multiple in these. So you got a few that you could burn around while your friends are burning around. You know what I mean?
Okay, I love that. But it's all part of our just trying to make sure that cannabis consumption is comfortable and cute.
Yes.
And smells good. I gotta say that the one thing I will just kind of also push the 3-in-1. So what is the 3-in-1? It is a
run spray.
It's a run spray, but no, it truly is. It's meant to be a room freshener. It's something you can actually put on your skin, and it smells good as your own perfume or like a perfume alternative. And it also has antibacterial, so you can use it to rub on your hands. And so I remember the height of COVID, we all had antibacterial, making dreams. And sometimes it was real alcohol-y, a little smell, not so much, and this gave us a different feel.
Yes, we bring it with us to our hotels, our cars, our everything, honey.
Absolutely.
So check them out, Modern Hippiez. We are going to have the link in the description as well as the Instagram, so you can at least give them a follow, because they do attend different pop-up shops within the tri-state area. Yes, that's our high of the week. And now we got to get into all these hot topics happening in cannabis, okay?
Oh my God, we got so many. Let's go.
All right, so hot topic number 1, we have to talk about Brittney Griner's update. We haven't talked about it on Hippez, being back in our 6th season, episode 4. So we want to talk about it right now. And we're just going to give you guys a little bit of backstory, but we know this has been dominating the headlines for months.
Oh my God. And my DMs, real talk. People are in the DMs, what do you think? A lot of people are having various talks about it, because the truth is we had a whole summer of the Olympics where we dealt with Sha'Carri Richardson and what were some of the double standards. But first, let's talk about what she did so that people know what actually happened.
Yes, so she plays in Russia during the WNBA's off season, okay? She plays in Russia, and she's been playing for many years. And so when she was on her way back to the United States when the conflict started in Russia, they were going through customs, and they found a empty vape cartridge that they then indicated to be a cannabis cartridge. Now, this carries a 10-year automatic, jail time in Russia, because Russia is a zero tolerance cannabis country, which obviously we could tell, because as far as I'm concerned, all their atrocities they got going on, they might need a higher endocannabinoid system, child.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I mean, we all do. We all deserve that right. I think it's a human right. But yeah, you mentioned it's empty. A lot of people don't know that she played for a team in Phoenix. We know that Arizona is legal, and it's been legal for medical cannabis for some time. It's in the market that we entered the space. It's where I got my first medical cannabis card. And so the bottom line is that however she obtained it, because a lot of people are talking on the blogs and on the comments, all in the chats about how, we can't support somebody who's using drugs. We should be ashamed of her. And to me, that's all BS, because she's using it legally in the state that she is not just a member of the team. She is the star of the team.
Right.
But there's also a lot of people got to come out the cannabis closet too.
Well, child, I wish an MFO would tell me I shouldn't be using cannabis, okay? Y'all gonna have to see this hood science degree real quick, okay? Because ain't no way that's what you're gonna tell. And, a lot of comments online are, well, if she was in the United States, this could absolutely happen, which we know. We talked about it before on other seasons about a man specifically from Arizona with the medical marijuana card traveling across states and got stopped in Alabama. And when he presented his card, he is still in jail, okay? And they even got some whack ass medical bill, and that didn't free him. So we do know that in America, the same thing would happen. However, we know with media coverage and the power of the people that it would not have this automatic jail time discrepancy, because she is a major star in the MWBE. So the WNBA.
You can tell you do business more than sports, because you're like MWBE over here.
Yeah, I am a business.
That's what we do. No, it's all good. No, I also want to point out, and the last thing I will say is there are real equity issues at play here. The discussion is so much deeper than just cannabis in Russia. First of all, right now Russia is in the middle of the war, and it started right around the time she was quote unquote detained, and so we definitely know that there are politics at play here. The second is she's only over there moonlighting because she don't get paid enough to do what she does for the WNBA. That is a real gender pay equity gap. A lot of people are putting out memes about if this was LeBron, and truth is it wouldn't be LeBron, because LeBron is not moonlighting in Russia, because he is getting paid like the best player in the league. And a lot of comparison can be had because she is the best player in the WNBA. And that goes back to the business of the NBA, WNBA, and the way I understand subsidiaries to work, it should have been a lot more equity in the resources in order to make sure the WNBA succeeded. Right now, the WNBA is just considering when it started and what we knew the promise could be. I mean, we literally had Cheryl Cooper coming from the Italian market in her 30s, dominating for the first 4 years of the WNBA. This is 96 to 2000, and it did transform the way we thought about women's basketball, but they didn't do the right thing business-wise, and this is all of that fallout as well. And then the last thing I will say is, the reason why it's so important to come out the closet is because I'm sure Brittney Griner has support as she is transitioning from one market to the other. When I'm traveling, and just being my sister, but also understanding the cannabis space, knowing that I'm a patient, you will be nosy enough to be make sure you check your bag for blah, 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 blah. Right. She's saying she doesn't remember that it was there. It was an accident. It was a leftover probably from travel within, her ability to do so in the United States as a WNBA player. But now she's paying for it. But it was also part of a plea deal. So she wasn't originally wanting to do this. She's doing this as part of a plea deal that's supposedly or allegedly part of the United States negotiating to get her back.
Yeah, she definitely had to plead guilty. She sent a letter to Biden, just saying she's scared. And I would be too, because I don't know shit about Russia, even though she's been there for years. I mean, she is saying that there is a huge language gap, 98% of the people within the jail and courts do not speak English. So could you imagine going to court? We already don't feel like they speak English in our courts, and they do. So could you imagine going to another country's court where they absolutely just don't speak English and they're like, do this, do that? We also know with a guilty plea, the United States could do more for her versus her fighting this charge. And so we are finding out via her lawyers that she has a medical marijuana card in Arizona. And, this is really just lets you know that at the end of the day, if we had known that even to begin with, some of these arguments that they're having would be done. I'm really struggling with the internet arguments about what should do, what will happen, what does it mean for cannabis, and honestly it doesn't really mean anything for us other than her helping her get back here, because she's more like a prisoner of war than cannabis.
Yeah, I think that's how the U.S. is thinking about her. I don't think they're thinking about her like, oh my God, they do this for cannabis for her, now we have a precedent for what we can do for the millions of people that are still being persecuted for prior cannabis possession. Nah, they're not doing that. And that's what we have to do. That's what we do. We connect the dots in that way. So if she does get somehow negotiated to be able to be freed from Russia, and obviously she'll be free in the United States, which is basically the United States saying, hey, we're not trying to charge you for that. And that means something. And it's why the CRCC wrote a letter to the DOJ to say, hey, we need to reinstate the Cole memo and better this time. If that happens, that means it's not just a Cole memo. It's like with some detail, because we have enough precedent. Right. So, but no, that's not the way the federal government is currently negotiating on her behalf. They ain't worried about cannabis.
Okay. All right, you guys. So what are we going to do? We don't know. So we will keep you guys updated on more to come. Hopefully she comes home soon. However, we got to go back to our hometown, New York City, baby, with our hot topic number 2. And that is what I mean by the NYPD is forgetting the game of spades. You know what I'm saying? They're reneging, and it ain't even strategically, as you would say. So yes.
Oh God, what are y'all doing?
I don't know, but they did do this. So New York City officials and the NYPD released a statement this past Wednesday. And if you're listening after our actual live that we are on right now, just know that it happened in mid-July that the NYPD released a statement saying that, in this memo, basically starting July 11th, the department will only drug test members that are presumed intoxicated with THC on the job in uniform. So you can apply to be a New York police officer. You will not get drug tested for marijuana. You can be a police officer consuming as a medical marijuana patient and not be drug tested, as long as you guys have the ability to not show that you were under the influence, I guess, of whatever that means, in uniform. And their reason being part of the MRTA passing and having everybody being able to have access to it. And they actually have some science behind this reason too. I'm surprised, but okay.
New York.
So they told us that because cannabis is so hard to identify when the point of intoxication occurred, that it is pointless to continue spending money to drug test police officers in the moment or during employment of their cannabis. And that is like real science. I'm like, okay, NYPD, I heard you. Mm-hmm. And this sent the internet by storm.
Of course it did. This is a huge precedent.
Absolutely. And because it set the internet by storm, it got picked up on many, many sites and a lot of different media things. Before the end of the day, mid-afternoon, boo, the NYPD says, psych, nah, just kidding. We are keeping our actual current policy, which is basically, if you're under the suspicion of THC or have had THC applying to the job or during the job, you are automatically terminated and won't be able to be at NYPD, and that they are going to use this memo and take it to the rest of the governmental bureaucracies and see if this is a legal matter, because cannabis is still a Schedule 1 drug. And then they have a whole lot of gun thoughts and things like that. So basically they reneged with not even 24 hours, not 5 hours. Like, it wasn't even a whole work day.
It sounds like something was leaked and now, of course, became a story, and the people at the top, maybe they didn't know about the memo, maybe they wasn't checking their emails, maybe they had too many emails, or maybe there's something the mayor wants to do about that, who knows. But what it sounds like is that something was in discussion, it got leaked like it was a policy. Media spins things, and then they came back to basically say, nah, psych. And that sucks, because whoever wrote the memo certainly, and I guess they're also trying to question the validity of the memo, whether it was written by somebody of authority.
It was.
Yeah, and so whoever wrote the memo certainly did so with a lot of information and a lot of cannabis competency, and so that in and of itself is exciting to see. It's, rare, and it's a police bureau, so that's like, okay, a little bit of movement, a little bit of a golf clap. But yeah, I actually think that they keep doing this because New Jersey just did that as well. Remember, it was the Attorney General, I think, at some point said, hey, the police officers, we're not going to be prosecuting you for this type of thing. Police officers should be able to do it. And very quickly, police chiefs were making statements within the day to basically do this. But this is the, fight of the politics that we have going on. This is why we have to talk about, like we did last week, when Fox News wants to be chirping and saying that all of this gun violence that we're seeing is due to cannabis, because these people carry guns. And, even though a place like Israel basically requires you to do military stint and then allows the military to use medical cannabis, we still are so reluctant, and we're battling this ignorant, reefer madness with real science. I think real science is going to win out, though.
Honestly, I have no idea, but this did come from, it is an official memo that was sent within the police department. New York City Police Department is the biggest in the country. It employs many people that don't even carry a gun, and they still have PTSD from working in this department. So I feel like if this will help your employees have a better quality of life, I would absolutely want them to be able to really be able to have the ability to use this as medicine, even if they're not smoking it and they're eating it, or they're using whatever products that the market has. I mean, I'm really saddened by this because, we are reforming. They're not going to stop you for a smell. They're not going to pat you down because of it, And New York wants to really cash in on these cannabis coins, but you're not going to allow your police officers to use it. I feel like it puts a bigger target on the consumer's back.
Absolutely. But also, they're going to be struggling to recruit. Right, you have the developing largest market that people believe will be in the world, and the tens of thousands of police officers that exist, who, by the way, are disproportionately Black and brown, because it's still that's a level that people can have a professional career. They're going to be unable to utilize cannabis as medicine, so they're going to need to fix it.
True. Well, I'm curious to hear what the rest of the bureaucracies will say and come down, because, they basically said, yeah, this is a real memo, but it's not in policy. It is just going to be pushed through to the lawyers and see if it's a legal thing. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you guys are saying. But, word on the street is that they could conserve a lot of dollars not testing for THC.
Well, of course, they could conserve a lot of dollars not arresting for THC too. So it's like they got some line items that they can take away and put more into development, cultural awareness training, because these mofos are on the street seeing little Black boys and seeing in their mind, based on their lack of cultural awareness, villains. And also cultural training, because they're also watching these media channels that are also, perpetuating these stereotypes about our children not not, even adults, children. So now they need cannabis. Everybody does. They have endocannabinoid systems too. Just because you put on the blue don't mean that you don't bleed red inside and you don't have the same thing that everybody else has as a human being. So you deserve the opportunity to absolutely use cannabis as medicine. It's a human rights issue. This is the case where I'm on the side of the human rights of the humans who are serving as police officers.
Absolutely. And hopefully, I feel like it probably will make them better police officers, to be honest. You know what I mean? Could you imagine if police officers were able to use cannabis, utilize even more holistic relaxation things? We'd really be able to see a change in police. And instead of saying defund the police, we'd be like, we need the police, and they doing yoga with us with their little cannabis mocktail or whatever.
I think it should be a requirement, okay? I think like the same way you have to do certain operational training and all that, I think it should be a requirement for you to, as a military and or law enforcement, have certain self-care activities, but they don't require that. But, we are a little bit ahead in that. We know that that's really an important part, but that's what happens when you don't have health professionals that know about the endocannabinoid system. Well,
it sounds like this guy knew about it, honey. He was like, because we can't test when the point of intoxication occurred, what can we do? We just need to probably stop testing them. And they were like, the world was on fire, child. But you know what? Really, why the world should be on fire with this hot topic number 3, because this is going to be very, very important to what we fight for, advocate for every single day. All right, so let's get into it. Basically, the governor of Pennsylvania has signed a bill allowing banks and insurers to work with the cannabis industry and people associated businesses and people with the cannabis industry, and it protects them. It puts provisions in place. It basically allows everything everyone keeps saying that the federal government has to do.
Yes, but at the state level.
Yes, at the state level. But it's smarter to do it at the state level because, honey, we know them federal banks be taking your coin and running with it like Ponzi scheme.
Well, it's also smarter to just test on the state level. And so it's going to be smarter to think big. We do want to do it all over, but we got to do it faster. We got to act faster, and we can start small. We have various perspectives on the outcome of safe banking as is. I'm a proponent of safe with amendments. Like we don't have any equity in the current banking bill, and so without that, I feel we're actually going to be going backwards. And I have a lot of reason to believe that as a businesswoman that's turned government official. I mean, I've just seen too much, and I understand how big companies really do take advantage. And even though we think that we're opening up channels for smaller companies, the big companies still take advantage. It's like giving Goliath the same speed boost while you're saying, but it's going to help David more. No, but Goliath is still running super fast.
Right.
So this is a good way to test it because Pennsylvania is a reasonably large market from a medical standpoint. They've been talking about adult use for some time. And yeah, I'm excited to see that there is some movement, but I also want to, see if my hypothesis is going to prove true. Right now, most of the people operating in the Pennsylvania market is big cannabis anyway. So who the bill for? It ain't for equity.
Well, as you pointed out to me, is that this current banking system, even without cannabis, was inequitable anyway.
Yes.
So it
still is.
It still is. And, so we're already starting way behind the line of where we should be at to be like calling for them to come and cash in on our cannabis dollars. However, I will say that this has been a bill that they've been working with for a very long time. It passed the Senate, goes to their House. They added amendments, and the amendment that they actually added, believe it or not, is to allow banks to opt out. They have the ability to be like, we actually don't want to bank with cannabis or cannabis people. So just like they put in provisions to protect them, they also put in a very purpley opt-out button too.
Right. If nothing else, this is just, again, I feel like in a smaller way, a pilot, and what does this pilot show you that banking institutions think about the cannabis space? Because they're the ones that lobby to get something like that in, right? They don't want to work with cannabis businesses, but if they do, they want to be protected, but they always, at the end of the day, are still giving more power to the institution than it is to the businesses or the business owners. So I just want to make sure everybody is at least aware that, like, let's not try to fool ourselves into thinking that this is a bill for people. It's always still a bill for banking, and that's an industry, those are institutions, and they deal with the bottom line. So they want to make money, and so when we think about the biggest complaints that we have in banking, these ridiculous fees for usual and customary activity, we're not going to see that significantly change. People are like expecting it to drop down, and I mean, in this worst case, folks are paying up to $120,000 in a year, some crazy number, to operate their businesses, their small businesses. It is crippling for very basic things like making a deposit. When in fact, like we talked earlier, the bank's actually using that money to help turn a revenue by lending it out somewhere else and getting that interest rate. So, you know, it's funny, but they want to get paid on both sides of this, and they want all of the control. And I think that's why I'm saying we need to put in safe ability for it to be a more of a control on them, because what we proven through all of the Fair Lending Acts and all of the equal rights protection, and still seeing 2021 reports that show Black and Latino business owners, not cannabis business owners, just general business owners, are getting services and commercial lending at much less rate, like half than white counterparts, that we got a sick banking industry, period. Sick and very inequitable. And then after COVID, we had branches shutting down, and you know where they shut them down? In our area. So we actually have a drought on banking services. All of that has to be put into context with what we're now giving banks more discretion on the cannabis space. So to your point, I'm like, okay, I'm glad Pennsylvania did it. We'll get a good test. I'm going to be watching, and this is one of the first things I'm bringing to the federal landscape to say, look what these banks lobbied for.
Right. And I am curious to see what banks opt in and what banks opt out that are Pennsylvania based, right?
Yes.
Because then it will definitely tailor the way they will be on the federal level, because you already know how most federal legislation is written is they allow people to opt in and opt out the true American way. And so, you know, as they add this into the federal bills, they're trying, are they going to allow for these banks to opt in and opt out? And they like to opt in and opt out based on our color, to be honest, I feel like.
I think, yes, risk assessment and the profile definitely comes down to the business owner and the entities that maybe own other entities. So, you know, I'm gonna be honest, white boys are coming in with private equity firms, like backing them. So they already have the cash flow. They're already high net worth customers, and they do have access. And that's their argument that SAFE is not going to make it better for them. No, it does, because the banks that are already taking this risk with them now are just going to then double down, triple down. Instead of getting a $2 million commercial loan, now you might get a $20 million commercial loan. And that's what I mean by we're giving Goliath the opportunity to truly expand in the same way we're giving David. I mean, I'm not a math magician, but when you do 2 to the 10th power, it's still not equal to 10 to the 10th power, okay? So it's like, that's what they're trying to convince us with this whole SAFE will be good for equity. Is that, oh, we giving David that 10th power, we you know, powering up. But guess what? We powered up Goliath as well. And because they're starting already exponentially larger, they will have a much, much larger impact on this banking industry. And they could ultimately shut us out, right? And that's what we don't want. And so it's like, no, guess what? Free the people. F the banking in some ways. Right now we got other options, and we need to continue to work on them. But in the meantime, you know, I do the work. That's my personal opinion, right? Mm-hmm. But when I am working as a regulator, I'm coming up with amendments that, in my opinion, help fix not just what's happening with cannabis, but what has been a real systemic issue throughout all of the banking industry.
Ooh, child, they ain't ready for that. Yes, take them to church, honey.
Listen,
they ain't ready for that sermon. But we only getting started in season 6, y'all. We only on episode 4, and y'all know how it is. We got many, many more to go. Yes. And I know already in the comments, y'all already gonna be like, when y'all doing an episode on Safe Bank, blah blah blah. It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. And we will break it down for y'all for real, because we getting a whole bunch. We still getting peeps about the federal government. So the safe banking episode is coming, but we gotta tease it out to you, and that's how we teasing it. Just like Pennsylvania, really. Yeah. I want to see now they're allowing banks and insurers to do this. Will we see adult use faster?
I think so, but will we see an equitable adult use? Will we still have to fight for it? What do we do with the money? Pennsylvania also have a social equity fund similar to New York. Like, I'm Pennsylvania governor. If I'm a Philly resident, I'm asking, because you remember, it's Philly and Pittsburgh with Kentucky all around. That's what Pennsylvania represents typically, politically. So we just got to be careful.
With a very red Senate House. The person that even introduced the bill was a Republican. So, we know when Republicans get into cannabis, aka Florida, they really coming in with a real mission for that only. So I would like to see, and I'm very curious how it plays out, like always. And, you've been talking a lot, if people don't know, you do Flower to the People every Thursday morning on the LaVrie Daniels show. That is an XM radio show. Okay.
Yes, and 26.
Yes, ma'am. And so basically, I be listening and stuff, because I gotta still listen and hear what you're saying. And
that's her way of saying she learned something from me.
Sorry,
go ahead.
All right. So basically, you've been kicking it a lot, because we also been off the air for a minute with our season 6. So you've been kicking it a lot on the LaVrie Daniels show, and you've been talking a lot about weed market dynamics. Weed market dynamics. I'm like, what the hell is weed market dynamics? Like, when you get a new industry, we come like a lot of things are new and stuff. And so I was like, you know what? We just got to do an episode on this, because if I'm saying this, everybody else is saying it. And you are a real businesswoman. Okay, shout out to you. It's so hilarious. I was just watching the Victoria's Secret Hulu thing of angels and demons, and if you don't know, please go back and listen to the backstory of how you got into this THC. But you actually have worked for many, many, many Fortune 500 companies and worked with many CEOs like the ones from Victoria's Secret, and actually him too. Okay, yeah. But basically, I'm just saying that, put some respect on it. You are a real businesswoman, and as a real businesswoman that's now in THC, you're going to break down to us, businesswoman in THC and patient too. So you want the products to be right as well.
Please.
You're going to break down to, for us, me, the people, what are weed market dynamics?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so happy that you said you've been asking that question, because you're right, because you're the voice of the people. If you're asking it, it means that people are listening and they are also asking it. And it is something that I've been talking about for some time, to be honest. I am definitely at a point where I've, got to the point where I'm coming up with my own terms. But this is not something that is my own term. It is a combination of terms that come from the business world. So weed means weed. And I'm talking about hemp too, because I love me hemp flower, and to me it's all weed. I blend it together. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The police can't tell the difference, which is why we got South Carolina trying to ban it, and other states, but the shade is real. So weed is weed. The market is the supply and demand. It is what you think about when you think about going to the market, the supermarket or the flea market. You're going to have people who are vendors, who are manufacturers, who are selling something to you, and as a consumer or a patient, you are creating that demand, because either you want it or you don't. Either you have to use it or you won't, right? And so that is the market. And then the dynamic part is how they interact with each other to create a whole slew of issues or benefits within a market that allow it to grow. And there's a lot of weed market dynamic failures across the industry. A lot of regulators do not understand weed market dynamics because they don't even understand how much THC you may get in an ounce, right? Okay. They're so busy about the story of a lot of weed leaves you pushing, but they're not really understanding the weed market dynamics. And so as a result, we're getting some new articles come out. Time came out with an article around the failing economics of legal weed. We just had one in High Times around Portland's struggling sales. And I want to talk a little bit about the weed market dynamics because it's like, you know, you won't rock with us for the rest of the season. You're going to have to really follow because New York doing some innovative stuff that's going to shake up the weed market dynamics. Right. And when we talk about the market, we're also talking about the legal market, but we're also talking about the unregulated market, both illicit, where we got this new gray, and new gray is people that have come in new to get around the loopholes of the law. And then we have that legacy market, the foundation of the market, where most people are like, you got your plug, you got your connect, and that's where most people are still shopping. All of that is the market. And there's a dynamic relationship. It causes a cause and effect. And the best way to explain it in a model is I use the 4 Ps because the 4 Ps are simple. It's something easy to remember. It is business and marketing related. But the 4 Ps are basically price, product, promotion, and placement. And it does impact how the dynamics of a market will move. Price is so easy, and let's talk about it because we have a lot of new things happening. Right.
Well, let's just go back. So y'all got your notebooks out, okay? You know, everybody trying to get their little businesses. Oh, I'm going to open a weed business. Okay, well, get your notebooks out, boo, because you got to understand the market you opening in. True. And so get your 4 Ps, which is price, yes, product, promotion, and placement. And then there are other P's too, and people may debate or whatever, but those are mine that I use to talk about the market dynamics. And this is what we call a framework. Right. It means it's something that's quick and easy for you to remember, but then you're able to break it down as you're doing research. So when you're entering a new market, you want to, whether you're selling incense sticks or bean pies or whatever, or weed, you're going to try to understand the pricing structure. How is the market coming up with the price, right? And so we talk a lot about the legal market versus the legacy market. And number one thing that I'm constantly pushing back on is we cannot blame the legacy market for the prices in the legal market. You cannot blame the legacy market for the failures of the legal market. The legal market is doing crazy over-regulation, over-taxation without any representation. And as a result, you're seeing the pricing structure in the legal market be beyond what is comfortable for the consumer. Point blank period. And as a result, the consumer will buy less. Right. Yes, initially you have an artificial kind of inflation of the revenue because out the gate, for most states, this is new revenue. Right. And so when you're getting a tax on new revenue, it looks like a lot, but these forecasts year over year, and California starting to see it, is not hitting, right? It's not actually doing it well. We talked about it last week in the California tax rollback.
Exactly, and that's why they're finally doing it. They wrote a bill that legalized cannabis with the intention to increase taxes year over year. And I'm like, where do they do that at? They are really trying to melt an industry before it's fully born, before it's really up and running. And it's been failing as a result.
It already take 2 years as a social equity person to even get this thing up and running. It ain't turnkey like New York. So, you know, they struggling to even open their doors. And then before you even open the doors, you got all these taxes. That's beyond crazy. But with some people are seeing, some states are like, well, we don't want that to happen. We also don't want the prices to fall on our patients. And so you see places like New Jersey being like, you know what, we just eliminating the taxes for medical patients, which is also hilarious because, you know, a lot of people are boycotting Jersey's legal market dispensaries. And so now they're like, oh yeah, if you're a medical marijuana patient, you get it tax free. But if your eighth is still 75 hours, I'm not getting it.
Right. So that is also them not understanding the legacy market's pricing, right? Whenever I'm going to develop a new product or have a line of products, I'm looking at the competitive market, and the competitive market set is what's in the consideration purchase consideration set for the consumer. And we try government, and I hate this, and I call people out on this all the time. You try to make laws, but you're like, I don't see the illegal market, but like, what you do? And so, if we don't acknowledge that that is a whole supply and demand, we literally put ourselves in a situation where you're creating a pricing structure for the legal market devoid of any data around the market that is existing. And to me, that's what Canada really did it better. One is government weed, so they have an ability already to like bring down the pricing. It's sort of the same as if you're going to get all sorts of, whether it's Tylenol, acetaminophen, you're going to get the government version. If you're over 65, Medicare, that's some of the things that you qualify for. It is much cheaper when it's government made and then distributed. So they've been able to really look at it, but they pay attention to the legacy market, and they're looking at what's the gram, the cost per gram, what's the cost per ounce, and ensuring that they're competitive. Right. Nobody in America is doing that. No. And that is why they're failing. You know why? They also believe because it's weed that people just going to shop it. And this used to irk me working with some of the biggest MSOs and some of those CEOs, such a lack of cannabis competency and basically acting like because it's weed, people are going to come in droves and then real upset that nobody like your inauthentic cultured brand.
Or your stale brand, because let's just talk about it. Some of these states, y'all cannabis like a year old. It's like, boo, I barely wear a year old wig. You think I'm about to smoke some year old shit? Please, it better be like, it's gotta be like, RIP to some of the greatest kind of weed to smoke that a year later. That's all I'm saying.
And really good storage. And if you don't know science, I'm worried that you don't understand how to better store your flour and store your concentrate so that there is some longevity. Right. And part of the lack of longevity is, sometimes using the solvents that go and help it because they don't age well, right? They degrade.
Shelf life, child. Now you're talking product, okay? And you talking real product thing, because we are the queen of checking the expiration date before we eat it, buy it, anything.
Yeah, so let us get into product, which is the second P. But before we leave price, the last thing I will say is having the comparison of the legacy market is important. Understanding what the common purchase price is of the eighth of the ounce is important. And then, I think also people misunderstand the maximum you can buy in a day. And that is artificially capping markets on a revenue as well. Not that people reach it. Like Arizona is large enough that most people don't reach it. But other states are is a little crazy. Like if I want to buy in bulk, you can't.
Right. Really? It's like, what you mean I can't buy 4 ounces? I'm having a party.
Yeah, I'm preparing for not wanting to come back to this mofo in the next couple of weeks either. Right. You know me. I'm good for bulk buying, period, because I don't want to have to. I'll store it myself. But
okay, Costco.
Yes. Thank you. So that's what I mean. Bulk pricing doesn't really exist. So pricing is very complicated. I could do a whole show on it. But product is also too. And people don't realize that when the government limits what can be on a product shelf, like New Jersey saying there could be no edibles, okay, I had to pause because edibles represents 30% of the market in legal markets.
Why y'all?
They are messing up the market dynamics.
Why? First of all, we really only go into the dispensary for the edibles, yo.
Exactly.
We're not really going for the flower, okay? Because our boy up the street got it and Ben had it and got even bangers.
Right. So, that's the joke. The fact is, when you are looking at the legacy consumer, they are most likely to go to the legal market on manufactured goods, right? Because the flower is something that you can use your nose, you have a connect, there's a little bit more discernment, you know what you're getting, right? As opposed to when your homeboy passes you some pretzels and talking about there's 500 milligrams in this bag. I'm sorry, but
we really had pretzels,
but it's true. I'm like, who's a real story? You worry, right? You're like, I want to eat a half a pretzel, right? Because I'm a microdoser. But also, when you eat that half a pretzel and nothing happens,
that's the word.
Like, so yes, that is a real gap right now in the legacy market. And so understanding the dynamics of the product and the competition is important. More people trust the manufactured goods in the legal market because there's more money, more requirements, and more things going into the dosing aspects. Even more education. Right, wrong, or different. I personally think indica and sativa is just lazy marketing. Shout out to Kristen Yoda, who that's a first person I always saw that. She's the cynical stoner. But yeah, no, for me, that resonated with me. It is lazy marketing. We have really smart consumers. If they can tell me about anti-aging at Victoria's Secret, and a little 6-year-old girl can tell me her hair type or porosity, we can get adults talking about terpenes and chemical profile, right? It's going to get there. But the fact of the matter is, for manufactured goods and those products, having a ban or a limit or a THC limit is impacting the dynamics on the product line there. And you force people into, well, I can get it on the legacy market, even though it might not be 500 milligrams, right? and then that means when you finally start getting real ones, you are really from a point of like just new, right? And you're like, I've been taking 500 milligrams every 2 weeks, and it actually ain't that sick,
right? Like 5
or maybe 50. I will give that, but people are struggling on the manufacturer. For real, I don't know. I found that I err on the side of caution because once it's in your digestive system, there's really no way. It's just gonna have to work itself out, and so start low, go slow, even if you're in the legacy market. But whether it's the vapes or it's like a patch, like I ain't really getting too many patches that are homemade from the legacy market.
I ain't never got a homemade patch.
No, I'm not having that. But that's the type of delivery mechanisms that I think are changing the product line. And when you have product diversity, again, look at Minnesota's failed market when they required everybody only to have oil, and it's all the same, and it's overpriced, so already pricing is messed up and product is messed up, and so of course the market is there. So that's what I mean by market dynamics. So the product is so important, and a lot of states are already, from legislation, putting in statute things that limit product. Right. Whether in the if you put a THC tax, right, you're going to now see people doing a lot of tweaking their products because they don't want to do the tax, right? Or if you put a THC limit, and I think that there's ability maybe to have a different, maybe certification level based on if you're medical and you want to do really, really high, but it still needs to be products that are available like that. It doesn't need to be a hole in the damn market. The last thing I will say is that culture still drives things, and because of all of the pressures on pricing and taxation and structure that the government puts on cultivators especially, you start to see a convergence on what flower is even available. That drives me crazy. When you go to a market and it's like every single dispensary got the same 4 or 5 strains. That's not helpful either. It's like, okay, we got genetics for a reason, and it's, to me, it's like flowers. I want it to be
right. Like we go to H&M, we get it. We gonna see the same thing in Forever 21. But when I go to that around the way boutique that got a name that I can't always say, let me tell you something. Yes. It don't got what Forever 21 got.
It got those special strains.
Exactly.
Special yeah, I feel you. That's how we shop like that anyway.
Right, but I'm like, I get everyone wants to have the flower of the summer or the flower of the season, but it's like, well, why is there only 4 different names for the flower of the season?
I don't know, but again, we could spend a whole class on product, the differentiation, and what the government does to hamper it. And again, don't blame the legacy market. People like to say, "Oh, there's product diversion." Don't trust that that's because the legal market folks are struggling under pricing, and as a result, they just are not getting to the product the way we need to. But then the next thing is promotion, right? Like, to me, promotion is really important for us to kind of talk about, because there are countries like Canada where basically there are no brands, right? Really, and in their promotion at shelf, they're not allowed to talk about cannabis in any good way. They're not allowed to talk about it, and as a result, even though they're doing better than the legacy market, they're not blown in a way that they should be.
I mean, if one thing America do have is good promotion. One thing about America, we gonna promote.
Yes, but that doesn't
mean it's not good.
Yes, and you know what? What I hate about cannabis, and this happened in the Cali market, the early parts of promotion were very much like beer and alcohol, where it was misogynistic and very much hypersexualizing women. The target market being white male, 18 to 25, and that I think we are starting to see a lot of change, especially with the East Coast coming on. But yeah, Cali has started, in my opinion, still the stereotype stereotypical culture vulture type of marketing and promotion. And then meanwhile, in New York, we had to fight and lobby to get the law changed to get cannabis even to do the Times Square billboard, right? So
now it's on the trains, y'all. I mean, it's still green though. It's still green.
We're working on that, but it is on the train. It's always refreshing. I don't ride the train anymore. I'm retired. It's a long story for that. But when I see on buses outside the Office of Cannabis Management promoting, I do an inside cheer because I know that there were times where the law prevented that, really, truly, and we help fight that. So yes, promotion is an important thing, but then also what you do at Shell, how the space is set up, placements, all of those things is really important. I think one thing I will give the legal market some credit for is that people are creating experiences so that they're promoting a certain lifestyle that sometimes is really just a bite off of the legacy experiences and lifestyle. But I'm happy because some of the legacy with opportunity, remember, like we have opportunity in product in terms of manufacturing in the legacy market, there's opportunity in experiences. I very rarely have been to a like super lit, colorful, come and slay type of event that we were throwing for that cannabis consumption.
Y'all, I'm quiet because I am shady, and you know the thing of like you ain't got nothing nice said on something at all. That's where I'm at about the.
We can tell from your facial expression if you're following us live.
Listen, I got a lot to say and a whole lot to read about the cannabis in-person experience. And I be bored half the time.
That is all part of promotion. Yes.
And it'd be funny if you're like, well, what you do? Well, shit, I don't do that. That's what I don't do. Okay.
But I think again we need to expand our thinking of what we mean by that, and that impacts the market dynamics as well. The last part is placement, and I think California and a couple other states have done this. Is a good example, but placement is like again where exactly is the access points, right, of the product, of the market. And to our point earlier, if I am able to just call up somebody and then my connect and they're willing to bring it to me, there's a delivery service to it, and it is reliable and timely, then why would I use my gas, drive, however far? And in Cali, there's like 20 minutes apart, 30 minutes apart. There are a lot of drought areas because 60% plus, almost 70% of the municipalities opted out and said,
and that's rolling down now, you guys. It used to be higher.
It used to be, and now that it's legalized, more and more municipalities want the money, but they don't want the equity, and so that's still something we got to work on. But basically, it causes an access issue. It's not placed in the right spaces, and the legacy market has better placement. It's in our hoods, it's in our neighborhoods. It's also why in New York we're starting to see a lot of conversation about these little trucks because they have quote unquote the best placement because they're dropping them all these different places that are high tourist locations and the like. I did enjoy a legacy to legal panel, and one of the legacy operators was like, not in my hood. Where I'm from, no truck is going to be able to just roll up there because they're what we consider the illicit market in some ways. They're that gray market that is starting to pay attention finally to the laws, and where there are some holes, they're using, money and really smart people to, create. All
right, you guys, I gotta say it. If y'all come to New York and you a tourist, do not go to the Vans in 42nd Street, 34th Street, all these tourism places, Washington Park, whatever, because that is him.
Well, now it's probably not.
I had it recently. It is, because they be trying to be like, oh, you want this free lollipop? Because there ain't nothing in it.
I've never shopped, but I have never shopped there. They get that. Of course, they're always around for little things at parties, so I'm noting it too. I actually sadly noted seeing one not exchange anything that was what I think is cannabis. So now I'm gonna be real, I actually don't think they're a help to the industry. In fact, that for a long time, because they've been around well before we legalized. Okay, let's just be clear, they have been around well before. This is not new, but they are advertising it in a way like it is quote unquote what we expect when you buy weed, and it actually is hemp flower. Right. And so there ain't nothing wrong with that. Like I said it earlier, I love the hemp flower, but it is what you expect. that. If you're expecting to get high and you smoke that, you will not. You're going to get real relaxed. You might even be like, dang, the little crick you had in your back is going all of a sudden, and you be confused about it, but you won't attribute it to it. You just will think, I bought some bunk weed.
Right, and that's not what we got in New York. So I'm telling you right now, tourists, because I know y'all coming through, don't go there.
Yeah, I was saying right now they're not only an issue for just the fact that they may not even be selling you THC based flower or products, but they are actually being pinpointed in some ways or pointed out or called out, and they're eyesore for the Office of Cannabis Management if I'm in charge. Like, I personally think we got to get them under control, and it's starting to happen.
Okay, yes, hopefully, because I'm like, girl, don't take that logo. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's almost like when we had that campaign about not buying your CBD out of the gas station.
Oh yeah, don't buy your CBD out the gas station still, though.
I'm like, but then we went to a gas station in North Carolina and they had a better assortment than people who like call themselves CBD stores.
Well, that's maybe because they got the better wholesale quality. Maybe it's different now. I still don't buy my cannabis out the gas station. I mean, I still shop with Ray Ray though. You know, I still shop with the cousin Ray Ray as far as like get your weed. Don't get your weed from Ray Ray. Yes, I am. Yes, I
think that at the point
yes, I am.
You know, I'm actually like the first one to say that we need to also not blame the legacy market for the legal market shortcomings. Like there's all types of crazy stuff that the legal market has imposed and has created this real issue. And so we can't go back to eradicate and suppress. We've got to figure out like why isn't Ray Ray interested, or why hasn't Ray Ray gotten into the industry, and create those conduits one way or another. And part of it is not dissing Ray Ray. It's giving Ray Ray his props, or really it could be anybody. Ray Ray could be your cousin Rachel. But the fact of the matter is it truly is like this is a market that exists. We have millions of consumers. For every one legacy operator, there's 10, 20, maybe even 30 actual legacy consumers that, by the way, would still have the same penalties because cannabis possession is still 90% of the cannabis arrest, about what you have on you. And if you are a consumer, you have it on you.
I always got it on.
Okay? And so we're all at risk. And when we talk about that market, we should be talking about the consumers and the people who are the manufacturers and their sellers. A lot of times right now, I think they talk about the legacy market and only talk about the operators. I'm like, don't forget about the people who buy it from you.
Okay? I buy like pharmacy, okay? You know how you go and get your prescription filled at Rite Aid? That's what I do with my cannabis.
But I'm saying a lot of people do, and what we need to do on the legal side is recognize that. I think New York is trying to figure it out with its seeding opportunity initiative. So we are seeing a trend, and I think we saw California start to roll back some of those taxes, so they're seeing the issue with the price. But it's balancing all of those things and making sure that we understand that all those things exist in the legacy market. And sometimes we have to actually meet people where they are. When I see that, like in Oregon, it's taken so long and we still don't have on-site consumption, it's a mature market. How is it possible that the number one thing people do when, stereotypically we all get together to smoke is convene as a group is still something you can't do legally with the license? That's not paying attention to weed market dynamics, right? That's ignoring the legacy market dynamics. It's ignoring placement, which is the convening of groups. And assuming that people are all, like me, like I got my paper for by myself, we good. But most people are not, and that's not how we're consuming. So I want us to know it better, definitely in the government. I talk about it a lot. I flex it a lot, and I'm testing a lot because I do think we've made regulations based on fear and not based on science, a little bit more based on justice, but I need us to get the science, the justice, and the culture together. Right. I need it to be in one.
It's a whole formula. Science, justice, culture equals great weed market dynamics. So thank you guys for joining us this week. We got through it okay. It is Saturday. I'm ready to go. I talk about these weed dynamics. It made me want to call up my weed man, grab some weed, and smoke it out.
It does. That's what She Blaze does for me. You know, it's my therapy when I'm like at the end of the week. But this was fun. I'm always happy to talk about it. Again, got the 4 P's: product, price, promotion, and placement. I probably can bust out some more, but market dynamics is important, and you need to think about the legacy and legal. Now, I know you say we can be found everywhere.
Yes.
And
so
absolutely we can.
Definitely check us out at theweedhead.com, and you can listen anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Audible, all them little podcast places. You could definitely listen to us there. And then you can follow She Blaze on Instagram at she_blaze.
And of course, you can follow me at Twitter, Dasheeda Dawson on Twitter and Instagram. I did change. I think I'm Dasheeda Dawson everywhere now.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. And then we said it earlier, but every Thursday I'm on Serious Urban Review, channel 126, the Loree Dang Favor Show. And I get on there. She starts at 10, but I get on around 11:15.
Yes.
Eastern time.
Flower to the people, y'all.
Hey.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye.